Welcome back to the Daily Living Jewish Kids Shulchan Aruch class. We are studying the laws of lighting Shabbos candles, which is section 75. Yesterday we spoke about the mitzvah being something that particularly relates to the woman, even though it's a mitzvah for every man and woman, it's something that specifically the women generally do. Although we did mention that, and we said how they should be well dressed for Shabbos in advance and already have a mincha beforehand, because by lighting the candles, they're already accepting night Shabbos upon themselves. But to be sure not to light candles after the sun has already set, which would be a desecration of Shabbos, if it looks like the wife will not be able to do it on time, and the husband will be able to step in and do the mitzvah. Now, when the husband does step in and do the mitzvah, and the man lights the candles, and he knows that subsequently he's still going to need to work, do some work, some forbidden neighbor, for example, maybe he's going to drive to shul and then leave his car at shul till after Shabbos. And then at the end of Shabbos, he could drive it back home. So he's still planning on driving to shul and he's lighting the Shabbos candles. So what should he do? He should have in mind when he lights the Shabbos candles that although he's lighting the candles, he's not yet accepting Shabbos upon himself. He has in mind that I'm lighting the candles now, but I'm only going to accept Shabbos once I get to shul. Even if he didn't make such a stipulation, though, he would be allowed to drive because by default, it's usually the woman's lighting that when she lights, by default, she accepts Shabbos. But since the man usually continues still able to do work after his wife lights Shabbos candles, therefore, if he lights the candles and he didn't stipulate, he would still be allowed to do work because by default, we assume that he hasn't accepted Shabbos together with the candle lighting. Bracha number 8. Candles must be lit in the room where the meals are served in order to indicate that they were lit in honor of Shabbos. As we mentioned, the primary reason of candle lighting is to prevent the person, shalom bayis, to prevent people from stumbling in the dark. But we mentioned that a big part of the Shabbos candles is also to add to Einik Shabbos, to the pleasure of Shabbos. And so therefore, one should ensure that he lights candles in the place where they're going to eat. They should not be lit in one place and transferred to another. He's talking about even before the sun sets. Obviously, once the sun sets, then the candles are not allowed to be handled at all because they're muktzah. But you shouldn't light and then move them into the room that you'd like. However, at a time of pressing need, for instance, when the woman is sick and unable to go to the table, she may light them at her bed and then may be placed subsequently on the table in the house because the whole house is considered as their place. So it's not like she lit it in the wrong place because having light in the bedroom can also help people from stumbling. So she lights it in her room, she'd make a bracha, and a man who hasn't yet accepted Shabbos can then subsequently move it to the dining room because it's still fulfilling the same purpose. It's all one central space. Similarly, women who light the candles in the sukkah and bring them into the house afterwards are not doing the proper thing. Because we said only in a time of need should they be moved around. Otherwise, you should light them in the very place that you will be using the candles. So our sukkah, for example, has a little overhang from the house because it's up against the wall of a house. So we have a little table up against the wall over there, and we light the candles in the sukkah, and they stay there for the full duration, or if it's Shabbos, for the whole Shabbos. The candle that was burning before Shabbos, so if there already was a candle burning and now you wanted to just allow it to continue burning and just make a bracha on it, that doesn't work. Rather, you should put out the candle before Shabbos and then relight it in honor of Shabbos in order to make it clear that this candle is here specifically for Shabbos, out of honor of Shabbos. So in summary, in halacha number 8, we've learned that we should ideally light the candles in the place that we will eat. So practically speaking, in our house, for example, we have the family room, which is right next to the kitchen, and then we have the dining room, which is the next room over. So before, like, if we're having somewhat of a more lazy Shabbos, and we're going to be having our Shabbos meal in our family room, which is right off the kitchen, so then we would decide on that before candle lighting, because if that was the case, then we would light the candles in that room. Or if you're going to be eating in the dining room, we'll light in the dining room. But that should be, when lighting the candles, you could first decide where you will be having your Shabbos meal so that you light them in the right place, because you're not going to be able to move them later. But as we mentioned, you should light candles in all the rooms that are being used. Now, this doesn't need to be candles, this could be lights as well. It needs to go around the house and make sure there's a little bit of light in all your areas of usage. Shouldn't have dark corridors where you might trip into things. You know, it happens. Just last night, I was, one of the kids, our daughter Chayla, had taken a car seat, the infant car seat with her into her room. She wanted to have it with her to play with the buckle when she went to sleep. I let her have it. And then after she fell asleep, I took it out and I put it in the hallway. Anyhow, I turned off all the lights. A few minutes later, my wife was walking down the hallway and clap, she got a bad bang. So obviously she certainly had reason to be upset that I'd left it in the hallway where it actually caused an injury. So this is exactly what we're learning about. In Shabbos, we want to ensure that there are lights in all spaces so that things aren't left that cause people to hurt themselves and then possibly, potentially get upset with each other. If you're at home with your wife, since she says a bracha of the candles in one room, it is not necessary to make another bracha of the lighting of candles in other rooms. You just make one bracha per household. But if you're in another place where you have a room for yourself, then you would light candles and say the bracha. So, for example, if you're maybe renting a room in a larger hall, if several men live in one room, they should all share the cost of buying candles, meaning everyone should chip in, so they're part of the bracha and the mitzvah. One of them should light and say the bracha, and they should all listen to the bracha and be included, because after all, we said the bracha, the mitzvah of lighting Shabbos candles is for everybody. And he should have in mind to include all of them. The person who lights the candles should have everybody in mind in his bracha. And they should also all have in mind to be included in the bracha. But if you do not have a private room, but you're in one room with the host who is Jewish, who is lighting, you need not light candles since your wife is lighting for you at home. Unmarried students who are learning away from home, bachrim in yeshiva, and have a private room, should light candles with a bracha. And they should also share the cost of buying candles, Not sure what that means. One of them should say the bracha. I guess those that are sharing the same rooms. If you have a few roommates on campus in university, then you should light your own candles for your own apartment, your own room, and then everybody living there should share the cost. That way they're both directly part of the mitzvah. They've all chipped in, they've all invested in this. And then one person would make the bracha and have everybody in mind. And the candle should keep burning until you get back, because obviously if you're going to light them, but then you're going to go off to shul, by the time you come home, they're gone, then you actually didn't even gain anything from them, because you left when it was still day, and when it was dark, the candles went out already. If you do not have a private room, since they have no wives to light candles for them, they must give a coin to the host in order to acquire a share in the candles. So if you're moving into somebody, then you want to actually chip into the candle lighting, so you can be part of the mitzvah if you are not family members. One who is supported by the host is considered one of the household and need not share in the cost of the candles. Halacha number 10. It is a custom that even if many women light candles in one house, each one says the bracha on her own candles, because the more light, the more joy. Light brings joy. However, care should be taken that two women should not light in one candelabra, as we already discussed. But in times of pressing need, we may be lenient even in this regard. So each lady that lights candles should have her own distinct space, if possible. No water should be put, even by day, into the socket of the candlestick, wherein you place the tallow or wax candle, so that it will be extinguished on reaching it. So although we're allowed to cause forbidden activity to happen on Shabbos, if you haven't done anything on Shabbos and you've set it all up in advance, specifically when it comes to a candle, you don't want to surround it by water that will later be extinguishing it. But in the case of necessity, then it's allowed, because after all, you're not doing anything on Shabbos. You're setting it all up in advance, provided that you put the water there in advance. But you wouldn't be allowed to place a vessel with water under a candelabra, so that if sparks fall, they will be extinguished. Because again, you're causing the flames to go out on Shabbos. And although you're doing it all in advance, I don't remember why, but specifically in this regard, we try to avoid this. Let's see what he says in there. Yeah. So it is forbidden to cause the extinguishing of sparks, for instance, by raising the vessel on Shabbos to catch the sparks. In order to prevent this, it is forbidden to place the vessel of water under the candle even before Shabbos. Okay, so that's the reason that's brought in the Magen Avraham, or that's one reason that's brought in the Mishnah Berurah. And basically that is, although if you've set up everything in advance, there should be no problem. The problem is that if you have water right there, you might play around with it and cause it to extinguish more sparks on Shabbos. In summary, what we're saying right now is not to place a basin of water to catch the sparks on Shabbos, because you might come to move it around on Shabbos itself. But placing a vessel without water to intercept the sparks is allowed, even on Shabbos. The sparks are not tangible. And you're not doing something to make them go out, you're just catching them from burning a tablecloth. Placing a vessel to catch the dripping oil or fat is forbidden, because if water or fat or wax does drip in, if fat or wax does drip into the vessel on Shabbos, then it will become muktzah, because now it has a candle in it, and you shouldn't make something muktzah on Shabbos. Muktzah means it's set aside from use. We should do that in advance of Shabbos. So once Shabbos has begun, we don't want to take a vessel that's usable and make it unusable, because then it's in some way we're somewhat breaking it. We're making it unusable by making it muktzah on Shabbos. So therefore, you should not put a vessel to catch wax or oil, because then if it does catch it on Shabbos, it will be unusable, and it will be like you're breaking it on Shabbos. You're not allowed to break things on Shabbos. But if you put it there before Shabbos, it's fine, because it's already been done in advance. You've already set it aside for use. And then, of course, if oil drops inside, then it will be muktzah. If oil didn't drop inside, then you would still be allowed to move it, even though you had in mind that it being available for that purpose. If it didn't serve that purpose, then you could still use it. It is preferable to place the challah, the bread, on the table before you light the candles. And we'll learn more about this in section 89, so that's an interesting one. I'll look into this some more. If a blind woman has a husband, she should light the candles and say the bracha, because she actually doesn't see the light directly. But if she doesn't have a husband and she lives alone, then she can light the candles and make a bracha. Why? Because although, let's first read a little more, if she lives in a house with others and they light candles, the blind woman lights her candles without a bracha, because it's being done. If she is the head of the household, she lights first and says a bracha, and afterwards others can light as well. So why is she making a bracha? How is she benefiting? Because although she can't see, others around her can see, and they could guide her. If a woman once forgot to light the Shabbos candles, for the rest of her life, she should light an extra candle. And if she forgot several times, she should always light an extra candle for each time. This is done to impress upon her to be more careful in the future. Therefore, if it was due to an emergency that she did not light her candles, she does not need to light an additional candle. So that's a practical halacha. If you were driving back and you didn't forget to light, but suddenly there was, I don't know, maybe a big traffic jam, and you needed to just park your car on the side of the street and walk home. Or maybe if a woman's just had a baby and comes home close to Shabbos, In all these scenarios, it was by forces beyond her control, then she would not need to light an additional candle in the future. But if she simply forgot, if it slipped her mind, the sun had already set and it was too late for her to light. So going forward, she should light an extra candle because she had forgotten to light that one day. So good luck with having your candles lit tomorrow night in honor of Shabbos by your wives. Remember to be there to help. You could be the one to put the candles into the candlesticks, and that way you're involved in the preparation of Shabbos and in the candles. You could even singe the actual wicks to make them easier to catch. And then if you're around to hear your wife making the bracha and be included in all the brachos, then that's definitely a plus. And remind your wife it's a time that she could daven to have children that will grow up to be immersed in the teachings of the Torah. Thank you so much for joining and wishing you a wonderful Shabbos.